Your manager is probably terrible at their job. I am not saying that to be mean. I am saying it because the numbers strongly suggest it. In a Gallup survey, 82% of employees said their boss does not have adequate leadership skills. DDI research also found that 57% of workers have quit a job specifically because of their manager. Not because they hated the company, not because they hated the work, but because of the person directly above them. And here is the part nobody really wants to acknowledge. Your manager probably was not incompetent when they started. At some point, they were actually very good at something. In fact, they were good enough that somebody decided to promote them. And that promotion may have been the moment everything started going wrong. In 1969, Canadian educator Laurence J. published a book that was originally meant to be satire. It was called the Peter Principle, and it introduced an idea that sounded ridiculous at first. The concept was simple. In a hierarchy, people tend to keep getting promoted until they reach a level where they are no longer competent. You start a job and perform well, so you get promoted. You work hard, learn the new responsibilities, and become good at that position too. Then what happens? Another promotion. The pattern keeps repeating. Competence leads to advancement, advancement leads to a more difficult role, and if you succeed there, more competence leads to another promotion. Eventually, however, you end up in a position you cannot handle. The skills that made you successful before may not transfer. The pressure can become overwhelming. The actual nature of the job can be completely different from anything you have ever done. And once you reach that point, you usually do not get fired. Instead, you simply remain there. The promotions stop, not because you reached the absolute top of the organization, but because your performance is no longer strong enough to justify moving you higher. This is where the principle gets darker. Once you reach a position where you struggle, organizations often leave you there. Peter described this as a final placement. You can spend the rest of your career stressed out, underperforming, and unintentionally preventing someone more capable from moving into that position. You are not succeeding, but you are also not failing badly enough to be removed. You are simply stuck in a role that drains you, while also keeping the organization from replacing you with someone who might actually excel there. For decades, people treated the Peter Principle as an amusing observation about bureaucracy, something to joke about over drinks after work. But during the last decade, researchers started asking an important question. Was Peter actually describing something real? They wanted hard evidence that could either confirm or disprove the principle. What they discovered should completely change the way you think about promotions. One major study published in the Quarterly Journal of Economics examined data from more than 200 companies and followed nearly 39,000 sales employees to determine what happened when top-performing salespeople were promoted into management. Sales was an ideal environment for testing this because performance is easy to measure. You either hit your sales target or you do not. There is very little ambiguity about who is performing well. And the researchers discovered exactly what you would expect when looking at who gets promoted. The strongest predictor of whether a salesperson became a manager was their sales volume. Top sellers moved upward, while lower performers generally stayed where they were. From the organization's perspective, the promotion system appeared to be functioning exactly as intended. But then researchers looked at what happened to the teams these newly promoted managers were responsible for, and the findings were brutal. The stronger someone had been at selling, the weaker they tended to be at managing. There was actually an inverse relationship. The superstar salespeople often took over teams that performed worse than teams led by average salespeople who had been promoted. And the difference was not tiny. It was measurable and statistically significant. The researchers investigated why this happened. Selling is largely an individual activity. It rewards aggression, personal focus, independence, and sometimes even selfishness. The best salespeople can become intensely focused on their own numbers, their pipeline, and the commission attached to their performance. That intensity is precisely what makes them excellent sellers. Management, however, requires almost the opposite qualities. It requires collaboration, patience, coaching, empathy, and the ability to take greater satisfaction from someone else's success than from your own. The qualities that make you dominant in one role can actually make you weaker in the next. By promoting the highest performing salespeople, companies were creating two problems at once. They were taking their strongest revenue generators away from selling, while also placing those same individuals into roles where they could hurt the performance of everyone around them. It was a double destruction of value. The The researchers even discovered what characteristics were more closely associated with effective management. The strongest managers tended to be salespeople who had demonstrated collaboration on complex deals, helped coworkers close difficult accounts, and showed patience during long sales cycles. These people were not necessarily the flashy stars with the highest individual numbers, so they were less likely to get promoted. The system was measuring the skills required for the current job, while overlooking the abilities needed for the next one. And this problem is not limited to sales. It appears across almost every industry. Think about an exceptional software engineer who gets promoted into engineering management. From the company's perspective, the move looks logical. They write better code than everyone else. They solve complicated architectural problems effortlessly. Technically, they are a superstar. So naturally, the company wants to reward them and makes them the boss. But the engineering manager's job is not primarily writing code. It is managing people. It is resolving conflicts between developers. It means sitting through budget meetings, negotiating with product teams, writing performance reviews, and delivering difficult feedback. Those are interpersonal and administrative skills. They require empathy, diplomacy, communication, and patience with bureaucracy. A brilliant engineer may have almost no natural ability in those areas. Suddenly, the company has lost its best programmer and gained an average manager. The team performs worse because the new leader does not know how to coach, communicate, or motivate effectively. The former star performer becomes miserable because they now spend hours every day sitting in meetings instead of doing the work they love. And everyone acts as though the promotion was a success because admitting that the wrong person was promoted is uncomfortable. Research from CEB, now part of Gartner, found that 60% of new managers fail within their first 24 months. 6 out of 10. And it gets even more surprising. Around 70% of frontline managers say they were not even expecting the promotion. They did not ask for it, they were not prepared for it. Someone simply approached them and said, "Congratulations, you are in charge now." Later, 18% of those managers say they regret accepting the position, while another 41% have serious doubts about whether it was the right decision. So we have a system that promotes people according to skills that may not transfer, places them into jobs they never requested, and produces a situation where the majority struggle and nearly 1 in 5 regret accepting the role. This is not simply a problem with individual employees. It is a structural problem in the way modern organizations think about careers. There is another piece to the puzzle, and it comes from a statistical concept called regression to the mean. To earn a promotion, you generally need an exceptional year. You need to exceed targets and stand out as obviously excellent. But yearly performance is always a mixture of ability and luck. To have an unusually great year, you probably had both working in your favor. The skill was real, but so was the favorable timing. Maybe the market was booming. Maybe you landed a huge client. Maybe your biggest competitor suddenly disappeared. Then you get promoted based on that unusually strong year, and something predictable happens. Your performance in the next period naturally moves closer to your long-term average. The lucky streak ends, the market slows down, the massive client was a one-time event. You regress toward the mean. But now you are operating in a more difficult position with much greater expectations. So a completely normal statistical return to average performance can look like incompetence to everyone around you. Most people imagine careers as ladders. You begin at the bottom and climb upward. Every rung is supposed to be better than the previous one, and the only acceptable direction is higher. I want you to erase that picture from your head. It can be dangerous. Instead, imagine your career as a graph. On the vertical axis, put competence, how good you actually are at the work, how comfortable you feel, and how much value you create. On the horizontal axis, place job level, beginning with entry-level positions and moving towards senior leadership. For most people, that line does not continue upward forever. It forms a very specific shape. At entry level, your competence begins relatively low, but rises rapidly as you learn. As a senior individual contributor, you may eventually reach your peak. The work matches the way your brain naturally operates. You feel confident. You finish the day feeling satisfied. You are operating inside what some people call your zone of genius. Then comes the move into management, and the competence curve can begin falling. You are no longer doing the work yourself. You are coordinating people who do it. You might be adequate at management, but you are no longer exceptional. The pressure increases while the satisfaction decreases. Then comes the director level. Now the job can become heavily focused on politics, strategy, and organizational maneuvering. And your competence line may drop dramatically. You are struggling. The tragedy is that organizations often celebrate the moment someone enters this danger zone. There are parties for promotions. People update their LinkedIn profiles. Everyone calls it success. But in many cases, what everyone is celebrating is the moment someone became less effective at their actual job. Here is another thing financial and career advice often leaves out. Your expected utility, meaning the combination of happiness and money minus stress, does not increase forever as your job level rises. For the first few promotions, the additional money may easily outweigh the added stress. Your overall utility rises. But eventually, you reach a tipping point. For many people, that point is senior individual contributor. Beyond that point, perhaps you receive 20% more salary, but your stress jumps by 50%. Meetings consume far more of your schedule. You spend less time doing the work you actually enjoy. And the probability that you fail in the new role becomes meaningful. That is a negative value trade. A rational investor would reject that deal. Yet people accept this career trade constantly because they have been conditioned to believe that moving upward is automatically better. Here is something that surprises a lot of people. In many industries, especially technology, highly experienced individual contributors can now make as much money as managers or even more. Staff engineers and principal engineers at major technology companies can routinely earn $400,000 or more in total compensation. Recent compensation data has also shown that staff-level engineers at competitive firms can earn 15% to 25% more than engineering managers at comparable levels. They often have less administrative work. They spend more of their time performing high-impact technical tasks. They may also be less likely to burn out. And when layoffs happen, they can sometimes be more protected because they are the people directly building the product. Middle management gets cut. The people performing the core technical work often remain. So suppose you have examined the numbers. You read the promotion offer. You understand the responsibilities. You compare them honestly with your own skills and interests. And you realize the promotion is actually a trap. It would move you beyond your strongest area into a role that does not fit the way you work. How do you turn it down without damaging your career? You cannot simply respond, "No thanks, I would rather stay where I am." That can sound like you have stopped growing. You need to change the way you frame the decision. The first step is separating compensation from the title. Most people believe they want the promotion because they want the salary increase. But they do not actually want the meetings, politics, performance reviews, and responsibility for other people's results. They want the money attached to the title. If you can earn that additional compensation without changing the nature of your work, that is often the better outcome. The conversation should instead focus on how you can create more value within your existing career track and be compensated for that added value. You want to pursue what is often called the senior individual contributor path. This is increasingly normal in technology, but the concept can be negotiated in many other industries too. You could frame the conversation like this: I really appreciate the opportunity, but I have taken a close look at where I generate the greatest return for this company. I believe that return comes from doing the work itself rather than managing the people who perform it. I want to become the strongest specialist you have. Could we discuss a path where I take on more complicated projects, mentor junior employees, and receive compensation that reflects the additional value while remaining focused on this core role? Now you are presenting your decision as a commitment to excellence. You are not saying that you are scared of responsibility. You are saying that you understand where you create the greatest value and want to maximize that value. You are also protecting the company from creating another ineffective manager, which happens far more often than organizations want to admit. And if they respond that there is only one way to advance, which is becoming a manager, that tells you something important about the company. It means they may not understand how different forms of value are created. It means they are still operating under an old-fashioned assumption that career success has only one shape. And that can be a signal that it is time to find an organization that understands the difference. Here is what most people do not realize. Turning down a promotion can actually be a power move. It can communicate confidence. It tells people that you know exactly what you're good at and are not dependent on titles to prove your worth. The people who automatically accept every promotion often end up stressed, struggling, and replaceable. The person who remains inside their zone of genius becomes exceptionally good at the core work and develops a reputation as the person everyone depends on because almost nobody can replicate their skills can become extremely difficult to replace. There is also a deeper psychological advantage that people rarely discuss. When you are working at a level that matches your competence, you are more likely to experience what psychologists call flow. You are challenged enough to stay engaged, but not so overwhelmed that you live in a state of constant anxiety. You sleep better. Your relationships outside work can improve because you are not carrying workplace frustration home every night. And the compounding effect of consistently performing at a high level in a role you are genuinely good at can create more opportunities than someone who accepted a promotion, struggled for 2 years, and eventually burned out or got pushed out. Excellence gets noticed. Struggle gets tolerated until it becomes impossible to ignore. Gallup research has estimated that low employee engagement costs the global economy roughly $8.8 trillion every year. That is about 9% of global GDP. A huge part of that dysfunction comes from people managing roles they were never suited for, leading teams they do not understand, and making decisions they are not equipped to make. The Peter Principle is not simply an interesting theory. The data supports the mechanism. The sales study demonstrates how the promotion system can create these outcomes. Regression to the mean helps explain why exceptional performers can decline after promotion. And the high failure rate among new managers confirms the consequences. If you automatically say yes to every opportunity that comes your way, eventually you may find yourself sitting in a room you do not understand, doing work you hate, waiting either to burn out or get fired. The smartest person in an organization is not necessarily the CEO. It is not necessarily the director or vice president either. Sometimes the smartest person is the one who climbed high enough to find the level where they are happiest and most effective, and then had the discipline to stop climbing. They optimized their overall life, not their job title. They optimized for satisfaction and impact, not another upgrade to their LinkedIn profile. That is how you actually win the career game. Because the objective is not to reach the highest possible position. The objective is to discover the level where you produce your best work, feel most energized, create the greatest value, and go home without dreading tomorrow morning. For some people, that level really is the C-suite. For most people, it is not. And being self-aware enough to identify your zone of genius and courageous enough to remain, there can be a competitive advantage that almost nobody talks about. The Peter Principle says people rise until they reach their level of incompetence. But that only happens when you allow the organization to make every career decision for you. When you take control, evaluate opportunities based on what the job actually requires rather than how impressive the title sounds, and honestly assess what you are good at and what would make you miserable, you can break the cycle. You can become someone who knows exactly where they belong. And strangely enough, that clarity can lead to more success, more money, and more opportunities than the people who blindly keep climbing ever achieve. Organizations eventually recognize the difference between someone who is genuinely excellent and someone who is simply ambitious. The truly excellent person may not have the biggest title, but they are often the person who actually keeps everything working. The next time someone offers you a promotion, do not automatically feel flattered. Ask yourself the difficult questions. Does this position actually match my skills? Will I enjoy the everyday work? Am I being promoted because I am excellent at what I do now, or because I would genuinely be excellent at what I would be doing next? Those are completely different questions. And if the honest answer is that you are being rewarded for succeeding at one game while being asked to play a completely different one, if the skills that made you successful do not transfer, and if you would be exchanging mastery for mediocrity simply to gain a more impressive title, then perhaps the smartest response is, thank you, but no. Because staying where you are exceptional is not settling. It is strategy. Where you are exceptional is not settling. It is strategy.